A very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at India TV Presents CMO Week, powered by Nickelodeon Sonic. After successfully conducting 3 events under the All Week umbrella, Television Week, Digipub Week, and Languages Week, we're pleased to announce the next one, CMO Week. To begin with, I'd like to thank our sponsors, presenting partner India TV, and powered by partner Nickelodeon Sonic. Now introducing you to the moderator of the session, Ashwini Kangal. Once again, thank you, everyone. Before we start, can we have the AV, please?
27 साल आपकी अदालत में आपका साथ क्यों नहीं? जब सवाल मुस्कुराकर पूछे जा सकते हैं, चिल्लाने की क्या जरूरत? जब इरादा सीधे सीधे खबरें दिखाने का हो, तो लोगों को लड़वाने की क्या जरूरत? इसीलिए मैंने इंडिया टीवी पर इन सारी बातों को ध्यान रखा। खबरों में, कमेंट्स में, सवालों में न किसी को बनाने की नियत, न किसी को गिराने की कोशिश। इंडिया टीवी पर शोर कम, खबरें ज्यादा।
Thank you. We'll now have a brief presentation from Sudipto Chaudhary, Chief Revenue Officer of India TV.
Thank you so much. Just give me a moment. Let me just upload this. Can we all see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'll not take too much of time because this is a basic thing that what we are going to talk about, that looking back and looking ahead. So I thought there are just one or two things which I thought is worth mentioning. And I will straight away start off with a small video just to make the entire thing very casual and very light. It's not a very serious stuff that I want, and I've never believed in such things. So we'll start off with a small video.
Debashish, what happened there? Should we carry on or should we wait?
Just give me a second, Ashwin. Just check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was this problem. I mean, could we see this? I've used this small video to just I think one of the most important thing which has happened in this last 7-8 months. Am I audible?
Yes, Sudipto.
Yeah.
Carry on.
So one of the most important things I think which has happened in this last 7-8 months, and we all have faced that, is something to do with the trust factor. Right from remote working to work from home and everything, where we are not being able to see half of our colleagues, we are working online. Sometimes the videos are off and stuff like that. I think trust played a huge role, and in fact, lack of trust played a huge role. I mean, whenever we have tried to do shopping, it was always online shopping. So while you go and get into online shopping, you have hundreds of brands coming on the screen, and you have to choose few brands which you are not acquainted with, and you may not have heard the name of that brand also. So that is where trust played a huge role. as a head of the team, when I was talking to my colleagues across the country during this last 7-8 months over VCs and stuff like that, I had to believe that even if their videos are off, they are doing the stuff what they are supposed to do. So trust has plays one very important role, and that is related to each and every aspect of pandemic in this last 7-8 months. I use this video to simply showcase couple of points that there's nothing permanent, and things will change without any expectation, and we should be ready for that. The way this guy Akshay Kumar holds the hands of this lady, and helps her to walk on the ground. uh, I think each one of us should hold each other's hand and support each other to move ahead in this struggling time. We need to support each other. We need to have that trust amongst each other, and rebuild the trust all over once again. There is no touch and feel when we go to the market and we buy something. If we are buying a jacket, we are not being able to touch that jacket. We are not being able to see how it appears to be. Um, we are just seeing it on the screen. So that creates a huge lack of trust in the minds of the consumers. So be it normal essential stuff from a brand which we have not heard about, or maybe a car, or maybe clothes, or anything for that matter. Everything has become very, very crucial in this fighting time, in this struggling time. We had to have a very open mind for every little opportunity that may crop up. Swiggy, for example, which was specifically doing home deliveries of restaurant foods, they started delivering essentials, and they started delivering groceries as well. So that is another opportunity which they picked up. People had been cutting costs. People have been very, very cautious in terms of spend. And at this point in time, consumers always remembered the companies who treated their customers and employees well. We are one of those companies. We have not chopped even one single job. We have not chopped off salaries, and we have always picked up deals during this period with a complete confidence that we will be able to service them well. If we had any doubt, even one iota of doubt, we never picked up those deals. So we lived up to the expectation of the clients. And looking back in this last few months, I just realized that um, we are the only channel out of, there are total 21 Hindi news channels which are beamed in this country right now, national Hindi news channel. So out of that, we are the only channel right now, by God's grace, that we have been able to grow. Rest, everybody has degrown between 2% to 15%, because commitments and supporting the customers, supporting the clients, being with your client, trying to help them when it uh, is required, is something which has played hugely in our favor. A very honest approach, and clients have come to us and supported us like nobody's business. So basically, building trust, understanding the customers, uh, build the brand quickly. Everybody is being very cautious on spend and being frugal. So these are few learnings that we have, I think, learned in this last 7-8 months. We need to take quick decisions, be very flexible and adaptable, because if we take too much of time to take a decision, what happens fundamentally is that by the time you take the decision, things might have changed. And all these things put a lot of pressure on each one of us. So having fun, having some exercise, going out of house and doing something which you actually like to do is also very important. So that's all I think we need to put forward. And one more important thing, that all these things you do with a lot of hope in your mind, and try and rebuild the trust which you have probably lost in the last so many months, and build the brand quickly so that we are always on the top of the mind of the consumers. So have fun, and uh, build the brand so strongly that we are always there in the space. And another most important thing, that never underestimate an old man with a Harley Davidson motorcycle who is actually making this presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sudipto. Over to you, Ashwini.
Thank you, Sudipto, for reminding us to have fun. And thank you, Abid. Okay, hi, audience. A very warm welcome to my panelists once again. Officially welcome to CMO Week. I'd just like to start by reminding everyone that over the last 12 months, the auto category has really been through the grinder. Let's not forget that even before COVID hit us, the auto segment was already reeling from the shock of an economic slowdown. And then COVID happened and the challenges were amplified. Having said that, I hasten to add that it is still one of the most resilient segments we have, and the signs of recovery are very promising. So I can't wait to hear what my panelists have to say. I have with me today 3 auto marketers, and I have the marketing head of an auto marketplace, Car Dekho. So I look forward to hearing from them. I just want to also add that, the reality for this whole category has changed so much that never mind the notion of a car as a status symbol or the car as a gadget of connectivity. We really have entered an era of the car as a bio bubble. So these are absolutely strange times, and just to stay cognizant of that over the next 45 minutes as we discuss how the rules of engagement for auto marketers have changed. Over to my panelists, I'd invite you now to take maybe a minute or two to just give your opening remarks to our audience. And by way of opening remarks, just give us a sense of what this valley has looked like for you. So even if we are on the upward climb right now, it's been a valley for you nevertheless. So talk about how that view has been from your vantage point, and really how the rules of engagement changed for you in 2020. Take about 100 to 120 seconds each, and then I'll ask you pointed questions and take the discussion forward. We can start with anybody. Rahul, you want to jump in?
Sure, Ashwini. So hi, everyone. Really happy to be part of this panel. A lot of friends over here, Tarun, Gaurav, nice to see you guys, and thanks, Ashwini. So Ashwini, quickly, this year has been a turmoil. It's been a valley, as you said, yes. A lot of learnings, to be honest. We never thought I would be sitting at home and actually launching a new model in the market. Doing the entire end-to-end 360-degree campaign sitting at home. Not only me, the entire team, our agency partners, the production happened on digital. So I think I was really surprised, never thought something like this will happen. The rules of engagement definitely have changed, as you said. Our media mix has changed completely 360-degree. We are completely focused on digital, and I'm really surprised the way customers are engaging with us and interacting with us through different digital mediums. So I think it's going to be an exciting story. There are a lot of things that I would like to share. Over to you, other panelists, please. Thank you.
Yeah, Gaurav. Sorry, Gaurav Sinha.
Okay. I would anyway was taking the first dips of the name Gaurav, with due apologies to Gaurav Mehta. Absolutely, what Rahul said is something which I think all of us as an industry professional agree. But I'd like to go back to Ashwini, the word which you used, resilience. Not only as a category, we are resilient, but I think so. The COVID era has shown that a marketing fraternity, the resilience in the fraternity, most of us working across in this fraternity are delivering not only campaigns and initiatives and values, working with multiple partners across the board, be it the production or be it even media partners and be it other agencies. The kind of resilience we all as marketing professionals have shown in this time, we all need to, at times have a pat on our own backs. But coming back to the industry, you're absolutely right. Macroeconomic conditions, even before COVID, were not very conducive for auto industry. And before even COVID came into full swing, we already had the BS4 to BS6 transition as an industry, which all of us had to go through. And then the COVID channel. And then after now, we are getting into a pandemic fatigue. while the pandemic is still around, but a lot of us, as I would like to call it, pandemic fatigue, completely focused on COVID related solutions in COVID related situations. And as an industry, we need to think of a little long term. We need to think of what happens beyond that. And that's been going to be a real big challenge for the industry, because if our complete initiatives are centered around how to react to COVID, this is a situation which hopefully will pass us by in next few months. And then the industry has to move forward. So as an industry, as a marketing professional, I think so the resilience is something which we all exhibited in last 8 to 10 months. And this is something which will keep us in good stead as we go forward. And over to you guys.
Yeah, Gaurav Mehta.
No, actually, I'll just stick out my neck and just say something which just sounds audacious, but this is something that I completely believe in, that this might be the onset or the start of the golden age of personal mobility. I think, Ashwini, from your point about cars being used as bubble, maybe 10, 12 years back, smartphones were like cars. I'm like highly aspirational products, but then today you really can't operate without smartphones. I see automobiles going the same way. So I really think we are at the cusp of the whole personal mobility revolution. And a couple of other things that have changed is that, I think to Rahul's point, I'm like, digital is becoming like super strong. And we are seeing that being like the largest auto tech company in the country. What I really think as an ecosystem, the intent has been there for the past 7, 8 months of owning a personal car or bike. But how does the whole ecosystem come to make it happen? How do the financial institutions become creative in terms of how do they actually help in ownerships, flexi ownerships, and so on and so forth? I think that will really, really accelerate the whole ownership and personal mobility revolution. But the world is much more digitized. A lot of new to internet users are looking at automobile, and this is something we've seen on our platforms very aggressively, especially in the past 5 to 6 months, to a point where we are at the largest traffic ever in the history of our existence. So yeah, Ashwini, that's what I think.
Absolutely. Very different reality for you at Car-Dekho, definitely. And I do have a very specific question around how the models of ownership and the attitudes to ownership have changed. I'll come back to you on that. But for now, Tarun, your opening remarks, please.
So very interesting, Gaurav, Rahul, and Gaurav, what you summarized. I mean, the key trends that you spoke about the importance of digital, the resilience. I think for me, the most important aspect of this year has been, in our industry and outside also, the optimism, which surprises me. And I'm talking about the country as such, including our customers, of course. This was a disastrous year by all standards. But if I look back at 2008-9, when we had the economic crisis globally, we saw a much quicker recovery in India. And I think I can see a repeat of that happening here. And as Rahul mentioned, the importance of digital, in a touch and feel category, which Sudipta also touched upon, automotive is a very touch and feel category. But the way we as marketers move towards digital and the whole virtual world, and also the customers which adapted quickly to this change, of course, things are coming back to the whole touch and feel in the real world, so to say. But for me, optimism is what underlines this year. And that is, I think, what makes all of us happy, the 4 panelists here. Because, after 9 months of struggle, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that is the most important message of 2020 for us.
Right. No, thank you. Thank you for all your opening remarks. And I have a lot of questions. Just a quick reminder to the audience also that's watching this live. Please feel free to start posting your questions and I'll get to them through the course of this discussion. But I'm going to start with a question of my own. Perhaps Mr. Mehta can come in here on this first, followed by Tarun. It's about the pre-owned or used car segment. Now, just to give you a bit of an obtuse analogy, earlier this week, as part of CMO Week, we had a discussion specifically around e-commerce. And on that panel, we asked the marketing head of a grooming brand about his relationship with horizontal marketplaces like Myntra, and about whether it's like a love-hate relationship. So I'd like to pose the same question to Gaurav Mehta and Tarun, and the others can jump in as well, because I want to understand whether you're friends, your enemies, or whether you're frenemies. Because when it comes to the used car space, Tarun is also investing in his own Skoda used car program. And Car Dekho, of course, though you can buy new cars on the platform, it's one of the biggest sources of income is used cars. So how does it work really? And the other part of this space, which I find very interesting, is that on Skoda's used car platform, I can buy non-Skoda cars as well, buy and sell. So how does that work? Is there rivalry, or is it all about building the ecosystem, or a bit of both?
Gaurav, you can first.
Yeah. So the way I see it, I'm like, while new car is fairly well organized, used car is the wild west of the automobile industry. I don't think we can look at anyone as a competitor, be it an OEM, be it a like-to-like player in the digital industry, because the level of investments, time and infrastructure that's needed to structure this industry into something which is similar to new car, I don't think one person can do it. Digital players like us, OEM players like Rahul, Tarun, and Gaurav, and many others have to come together. So previously I was with OLX, which is another use economy platform, and we saw that it's such a big market out there, and that's the growth driver for automobile as we go forward. I think all parts of the ecosystem have to come together. We are seeing inordinate amount of interest in used cars, especially past 5 odd months from a buying perspective, and that's where I think all of us have to come together to structure this industry. So no enemy, no enmity over there.
Yeah, sure. No, I hear you. Of course, it's all about creating the ecosystem. But at some level, is there rivalry? I mean, it's like, does the aggregator somewhere hurt the individual car brand marketer who's trying to build his own used car platform? Tarun, can you react to that?
Actually, no, Ashwini.
Okay.
Gaurav is very right. This ecosystem is very symbiotic.
Okay.
People who buy used cars are buying somebody's used car who's going to buy a new car. There are lots of first-time car buyers in the market who buy new as well as used cars. There's a huge playing field right now, and as Gaurav mentioned, most of it is unorganized in the pre-owned business. That is, players like us, and we also OEMs, we also depend on aggregators. So we also have a partner who helps us do this business. So it is extremely symbiotic. It makes sense for everybody. Because, and why do OEMs have this business? Because we want our dealers to also benefit from this by dealing in other brand cars. Because when they deal in other brand cars, they make some money, which they put back in the business. Also sell new cars. So when they take an old car, they also try to sell a new car to the person who sells this car. So it works hand in hand. There are no enemies here, honestly. All of us are friends, and may the tribe grow.
Okay, fair enough. Rahul, Gaurav, Sinha, if you want to come in on this, you may. Otherwise, I'll just go to my next question.
Just a quick point here, Ashwini.
Sure.
And absolutely agree with both Gaurav and Tarun what they said. It's a very symbiotic relationship. And from a customer point of view, it is about offering a choice, and the wider the choice is, the customer is the winner. So purely from that point of view, we are all here in this business to serve customers ultimately. And therefore, if you see from that perspective, this is about offering a wider variety of choice. And as both of them clearly mentioned, this is a industry which is very, very unorganized, player dominated. So therefore, if you have corporates and organized players and responsible organizations in this, there is an element of distrust in this industry, and you can eliminate that and deliver quality products with quality reassurances and warranties and etc. I think so. We are, like Gaurav said, we are at the cusp of personal mobility boom. I think so. We are also at the cusp of boom in used car. I'm sure a lot of first data is showing that already. And although we as a brand operate in the luxury segment, we have also seen tremendous growth in recent times in used car segment. And it comes from the fact that there is a trust which customers put in that OEM, especially if you have your own regulated program where you do that. And this is the way forward for this industry, where lot of OEMs will be having these products, as well as a lot of aggregators will have this product, and we will work, like Tarun very rightly used the word symbiotically. We will be working very symbiotic with each other, and we need to grow this industry, because it is right now at a very nascent stage, and this will continue to grow. So absolutely no frenemies as well. Enemies not a question, but no frenemies as well. We are all partners.
Sure. To take another, leaf from the e-commerce discussion, there was some talk about individual brands having a sense of suspension of control when their brand was part of a larger marketplace, as opposed to selling on their own platform. So on that front, is there anything to fix over here? So Tarun, if I want to buy a used Skoda and I go to a Car Dekho, do you have a sense of, hey, just come to my platform? I can control the experience better.
No, we don't do that. I mean, that's a very petty way of looking at business, because we understand the realities. I mean, all of us are in the business to, make money, including the aggregators, including used car players, OEMs, dealers, all of us. And like I said earlier also, the person who's buying a used car today is tomorrow going to buy a new car also. So there is no challenge here. Currently we are suffering from lack of availability of enough used cars in the market also. Because this year, a lot of people who should have bought a new car have ended up buying a used car as a temporary stopgap to tide over these tough times. Maybe in a year or two, they come back. And if a person is buying a used Skoda from any platform, if he has a good impression of the brand and he likes the brand, he would come back and buy a new Skoda from me later. I'm happy about that. Absolutely.
Okay. Great. That is interesting indeed. Now, just to go back to what Gaurav Mehta said about, new models of ownership, I'd like to expound on that through my next question, which is about car subscriptions. So Maruti was in the news recently for its new program where you can subscribe to a car, quote unquote, where you can drive a new car for a period of, say, 2 years without any of the ancillary financial trappings of ownership. So how has that changed the game for car marketers? Even I read a Zoom car rental interview as well, where the lock-in period was actually being extended from maybe a weekend or a week to a long period of, say, 12 or even 24 months, where you can subscribe to the car and not really own it at all. So how has that changed things for you? And what does that mean? Specifically what I want to understand is, does this trend have the potential to become big going forward? And does this indicate a fundamental shift in the way we look at the sentiment of owning a car? Rahul?
Sure, Ashwini. So yes, I see there is a huge potential in the subscription model going forward. If you ask me particularly what's happened in 2019 or 2020, to be honest, that platform needs to be leveraged at a much higher level is what I feel. There has to be more competition. There has to be more players who are offering better options for the customers. As of now, there aren't many, to be honest. But if you look at the European markets, or if you look at the United States, you'll see these models have been extremely successful over there. So for that to happen in India, and change the way people think and feel about owning an automobile, it's going to take some while and some kind of change in consumer thinking, as well as the consumption pattern or the ownership patterns. So it's still far off, is what I'll say. But the more players coming into it, obviously there is huge potential for that.
Okay. I'd like the others also to respond to this. What's the potential of this trend, Tarun, and the others as well? What do you think?
So Ashwini, this is a trend catching up in India. It's been there in the Western world for the longest time, and companies and brands like ours have always had this kind of business. So it's not nothing new for us. India, yes, we have to be part of this whole let's say movement, simply because you cannot deny a customer what he wants. So we will be part of it. But on the other hand, if you see India as a market, look at the potential that India has for ownership. We have one of the lowest penetrations per thousand in the world. 22 cars per thousand, we are one of the lowest. Even Nigeria is 3 times of ours. And Bangladesh is 4 times of ours. So And people buy cars for specific reasons in India. And one of the biggest reasons which we tend to ignore in all our practicality is that cars are still a status symbol. Cars are still a massive sign of arrival for a lot of people. And like somebody said yesterday, that this is possibly the only, depreciating asset which people fall in love with. With a car, the moment it rolls off the showroom, it depreciates 20% the moment it hits the road. But people still love it. There is a relationship that you have with your car, which is of love. And that sense of ownership will remain for a lot of people who would like to own their car. We name our cars in our country. We call them by pet names. But there is a growing percentage of customers who are following the Western pattern of not owning anything but leasing or paying for the services. And by no stretch of imagination, by the way, you pay less when you lease a car than if you were to own it, because you pay for everything. The customer pays for everything.
Okay.
It's just that you believe that you are paying per month. It's like buying a house versus renting a house. You're still paying a hefty rent for using it. Okay. So, and obviously no leasing company is in the business of charity that they will offer you a car unless they are making money and recovering all the costs from you, including the cost of insurance and road tax and service and all that. So it's a business. It's a business. Some people subscribe to the thought that I don't have an asset in my name, so I'm not burdened by it. Good for them. In a country like Germany, buying a house is not a big thing because a lot of people don't intend to buy a house. The intent is to rent it all their lives. They're pretty happy about it. That's the same for with car ownership and the new emerging trends. So I see as a welcome trend. It still helps in selling cars. Leasing companies and subscription companies would be buying cars from us. So it's perfectly fine.
Okay. Gaurav Sinha, Gaurav Mehta, do you agree with him? And Gaurav Mehta specifically, because the conversation kind of began with the point you made about ownership. So I'd love your thoughts on this as well. Both of you.
Gaurav, please go ahead first.
I'll take the Gaurav lead this time round. No, I think it just, and I think actually Gaurav Sinha is a better person to answer, because luxury cars in the country have used this model extremely well. They reduce the cost of ownership at a point of time, whereas and Tarun is absolutely right. It's not that it's you are not paying for what you're using. It's just like a different financial model altogether. What luxury car marketers in the country have done really well is to make people believe that at that point of time, your cost of ownership is much lesser. Why flexi ownership or different ownership models in different segments of the car is like a big opportunity is because while the country economy is on an upswing, but I don't think we are going to go back to the whole disposable income saving ratios for another year or so. And I think Tarun pre-talk also was saying 1st Jan 21 ko sab change nahi ho jayega. I think it's going to take a lot of time. So how do we actually match the intent of personal mobility with the financial flexibility through the BFSI sector, through reducing the cost of capital is a great opportunity, in my opinion, for the lower segment of the cars. Luxury has used this very well. But how can the lesser segments of the cars use this, and which is the single biggest driver of personal mobility going forward. And again, I'm to your earlier point, Ashwini, I'm just merging that question also about like frenemies and collaboration. For the first 18 to 24 months, if you're a leasing company or you're making your business around flexi ownership, you're not making money. It's only post 24 months that you start seeing some sort of money. So the first 2 years are loss leaders for you as a company who's getting into this business. So again, by yourself, you can't do it. You have to get the support of banks. You have to get the support of NBFCs. You have to get the support of OEMs. You have to get the support of post-purchase delivery service centers. It's a whole ecosystem that needs to come together. But I really think that consumer intent is not going to come back as strongly as we are seeing right now, which is why I'm so excited about this whole flexi ownership, where financial modeling and a different financial outlook on the cost of ownership and the way you own the car can be a big unlock.
That's a nice phrase, flexi ownership, right? I think that's something to hold on to, right? Gaurav Sinha, do you have something to add here? Because there's a very nice audience question as well that I plan to go to next.
So quickly, Tarun very rightly said, there is a romanticism in buying a car, and you have to understand the cultural context, especially in the market where we operate. A lot of people aspire to be car owners, and there is a lot of process which goes into, and a lot of excitement, and families and friends get involved if somebody is making a choice of buying a car, and when deliveries are happening, and in certain societies you have puja happening at delivery, so it's not just a functional asset you're buying, it's an emotional asset you're buying. So that's the first point, and especially more so in our category, people invest a lot of time and energy and mind space in that. And like Gaurav very rightly said, in luxury car segments, we have come out with a lot of financial remodeling in terms of whether it's about giving guarantees of buying back, with a fixed period of ownership, as well as giving not only flexible payment plans, but also flexible plans on where you are able to rotate cars, in the same family, 2-3 years, you are able to convert, bring back the car, take the next car, exchange programs, etc., etc., etc. So overall, the experience has to be dealt again from the standpoint of customer, and also from the cultural context of where in our environment, leasing as a concept itself is not only at the nascent state, it is as of now not a cultural fit, because we as an economy, everything, if you see, when we are growing up, when we get the first job, first thing you want to do is have mobility. Second, you want to have a house of your own. There's a mindset in which we are operating. Yes, there is a younger generation where the mindset is changing, but it's a very, very nascent stage. And very rightly, both Tarun and Gaurav talked about leasing companies. There are obviously different business models in leasing, also wet lease, dry lease, etc. But the gestation periods are very long for them to make money. So you don't see a lot of leasing companies also offering a lot of various programs in India. So you have to understand the cultural context in which Indian business is running in automobile. So I see it is still a long way away before it becomes a very popular concept.
Right. No, thank you for that. That is interesting indeed. So I'll go to a question from Shruti Rawal. She's a digital startup founder, and she's essentially asking everybody about your media buying patterns, about whether your investment on digital platforms have increased, and about the ROI on that front. Now, of course, there is a pivot to digital, like Rahul, we were chatting yesterday. That's a very, in a nutshell way of putting it, the pivot to digital. But can you elaborate on that and answer Shruti's question? How have your media buying patterns changed, and how has the way you look at the media pie really changed, especially in the context of TV and print perhaps not being what it was for you as platforms? That whole, if I can club TV and print as historically big for the auto industry.
Right. So, Ashwini, obviously, the traditional way of doing media planning post March 2020 has changed drastically. Okay. We were doing the same old traditional way of media planning, media buying, even in January and Feb of 2020 this year. But March onwards, everything changed. Okay. And obviously, there was a lot of discomfort in terms of how, it's how the brand is going to be viewed, or what's going to happen to the brand metrics, the brand health metrics post, switching away from TV, print, and even out of home. Surprisingly, digital has really done extremely well, and surprisingly, our audiences have also reacted in a very positive way to digital. I think since everybody was working from home and so glued to their mobile phones and the digital mediums, it was very easy to have a very focused marketing campaigns to the right audience. So my perspective towards media planning has completely changed. We have definitely, for the past 4 months, we are 100% digital. We've not done anything on any other medium. And the way I'm looking at 2021, I mean, I don't want to disclose much about it, but digital is going to play a big role. And I'm really looking for innovative and a stronger metrics in identifying ROIs on the digital campaigns.
Okay. Does anybody have anything to add? Does anybody else want to add to Rahul's answer? can address Shreya's
I'll
question.
quickly just say, Ashwini, Rahul is right. Obviously,
Yeah.
during this period, or digital has been the go-to medium for most of us. But I would also say that most of us in the auto industry were already looking at digital in a big way, even pre-COVID. What COVID did was accelerated that change.
Okay.
It accelerated. So it's not because of COVID, a lot of people went digital. People were going digital. Degrees of digital were varying from company to company and plan to plan and strategy to strategy. But digital was already finding a lot of favor because of not only a medium, where the interactivity is there, but also a medium where a lot of trackability is there. You can track and you can see the response mechanism and etc. So it was already in vogue for auto industry, and it's just that the COVID era has accelerated this. But at the same time, I would also say a word of caution here that post-COVID era, like I said, there is a pandemic fatigue right now here. All of us are only pandemic oriented, and we have to recognize the post-pandemic era as well. While things will not go back to how it was there, but things are not going to be as it is right now. So other streams of mediums will also make a comeback. How strongly, or is something we have to wait and watch. But as a marketer, what I would say is we are not putting all our apples in one basket.
Sure. No, I'm glad you mentioned pandemic fatigue, because a listener, Biju Kurup, has a question about that in the context of whether the car as a bubble is going to last, if that attitude is going to last or die down and fizzle out. And I think that's a very relevant question, because just yesterday we had an interesting panel with a bunch of marketers from the hygiene and immunity space. And they discussed how a lot of products that they sold and a lot of behavior patterns that they noted in 2020 were all tied to a mass sentiment of anxiety. And now, as people, as that's going down, as anxiety levels are going down, and there's just pandemic fatigue, and people are not as cautious as they used to be, they're going back to their pre-COVID behaviors in that space. So if we can bring that into the car discussion, Gaurav Mehta, anybody, if you can answer Biju Kurup's question about whether even that behavior, that attitude towards the car as your private space will last or fizzle out.
Sure, but I think uncertainty is a big motivator. Fear, uncertainty is a big motivator. All of us will be living with the current reality for 1 year, couple of months. That will make us realize the importance of that bubble / personal mobility. So what I see is that while shared mobility will come back again, personal mobility will have, it's going to coexist.
Right.
So personal mobility is going to accelerate like higher, and then they'll coexist. Some like a person will say, hey, you know what, I'm going to take the cab or a metro when I don't want to drive my car, but I need to have a car for those emergency moments and all. So that's the way I see it, Ashwini.
Right. Does everybody else agree with Gaurav? I mean, because it's a very relevant question. We've already, I see people having swung back to pre-COVID levels of behavior patterns and attitudes. So will the car really stay a bubble going forward?
No, I think Gaurav summed it up beautifully that, we Indians tend to forget very easily. And this is also, like I said, that we're either inherently optimistic or foolhardy. Is the moment we believe that the pandemic has passed or the crisis has passed, we come back and we revert to our original behavior immediately. And that is a trait that is very strong in India. So while it will continue for about a year or so, like Gaurav said rightly, I think we'll go back to pre-COVID behaviors as quickly as we get inoculated, and we'll be normal. Absolutely, in our own heads, we'll stop taking precautions. We have already stopped wearing masks on the road. If you see half of the people, when I drive around, I see more than half of the drivers, despite government rules of wearing masks inside cars, people don't care already. People have started partying. A nightclub, there were 1,200 people. There was a raid apparently a couple of days back. So there goes all the precaution that you have. And in a nightclub, in an upmarket nightclub, I assume people are educated and intelligent. So you have that kind of behavior already on display. So yes, people will revert back to their original behaviors as quickly as we can say vaccine.
So Ashwini, adding to what Tarun said, I mean, I don't see any risk in people going back to the pre-COVID behaviors, you know, specifically for an automobile brand. Automobile always will remain aspirational, and I love it that way, you know, because buying a car is a festival within the family. It's family get together, that they put it on social media, share it with friends and everything, and that is how it should be. So even if people go back to the pre-COVID behaviors, I don't think there's any risk.
Yeah, of
in
course.
that.
No, Rahul, this was specifically in the context of personal mobility versus public transport, perhaps. So it was only in the context of that, going back to those behavior patterns.
Actually, we also
Shopping
have,
and
sorry,
Uber.
actually, sorry to butt in, but we also have to realize that a lot of people don't have the option. You would love to buy a car. Can you afford to buy one? Can you even afford to lease one at 25,000 bucks a month? When you can do all your monthly travel in Ola and Uber in 10,000. See, the difference between 10,000 and 25,000 outgo in a month is massive for most of the country. So that the question of affordability is also important. My wanting to have a car is not necessarily, you know, propelling me to buy one.
Of course, yes.
It's a huge decision. It's a big investment. I mean, not only while buying it, but even when owning it. So it's a big decision, and I don't think just because of COVID, people will rush and start buying cars every day. I don't think.
And Ashwini, coming back to a point which is very personal, my wife has started taking Olas and Ubers to office simply because in her office area there isn't parking available. So even if she can afford to buy a car, she has no clue where to park it. So she is more comfortable taking Ola Uber, of course, with the risk attached. So we always do this balancing act between you know, what amount of risk you can handle and going about your life. And that is what Indians are all about. That is, I think, coming back to resilience that we have. Sometimes resilience is forced upon us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, the next question is from Abhijit Narseri. We touched upon this in part, but let's look at this again. He wants to know if high-end car OEMs, within brackets Skoda/Audi, start selling their cars to leasing/car aggregators, how will it affect the brand image of the car and the company? Now, this is a hardcore brand image question. So it's not about whether you can control the after sales or not. It's about the brand image. So does anybody want to take that? Maybe Gaurav Mehta? And then the rest can also add to it.
I think I think while Gaurav will be a better person to answer this one, I will sit on the fence and say, I don't think there's any problem of brand image for the luxury car makers or the premium segment car makers also.
Yeah.
Just a way of ownership, while the audience gets, and one stretch argument that I can give is for luxury watches. A lot of, I think Tag Heuer, I think, was the one that explained all the other luxury watch manufacturers in the country how to sell luxury watches to not just the people who are sitting in Delhi, Bombay, but to other parts of the country also. And I don't think anybody thinks lesser of Tag Heuer today. So I think that's how I see the same way for luxury and premium segment of cars. That's what I think.
Sure. Tarun and Gaurav Sinha do come in because Abhijit named your brands.
Yeah, and Gaurav is absolutely right. What he said, it's not a problem to sell your car via either an aggregator or through any other. Means ultimately we are in a business of serving our customers, like I said earlier. And if the customer chooses to buy from a different platform or from a different means, we need to be available. Brand image is not a function of where the car, which platform it is being sold only. Brand image is about obviously not only the non-functional things about the brand, but also the functional things about the product. And you have to deliver on the product promise. And the product promise does not change on the sales mechanism. It's to say we all have wonderful showrooms, fantastic experience in our showrooms. In recent times, we are all selling digitally. Does that mean we're taking away from the experience of people walking into our showrooms and having that luxurious feel of being treated by a sales consultant, and going through the sales experience? The answer is no. So I wouldn't dwell too much into how that impacts. If I understood the question, if that is the case, I wouldn't dwell too much into it. One needs to be very careful about cultivating the brand image in terms of how you are doing product marketing as well as brand marketing. That is where you need to be careful about. For brand like us, we need to look at the mediums of communication, the channels of communication, the kind of choices we are making. That is where we need to be more careful about, because those are the things which make more impact on the brand image. Aggregators as well as leasing companies as well as many other such players are actually enabling us to come closer to the customers, and deliver our products and give us access to those customers. So I don't see that as much of a problem.
That's an interesting answer. Yeah. Tarun, what's your take on this?
So it's a very interesting question, because about, let's say, a decade back, it was very relevant. When customers saw a particular car brand or a model being used as taxis, they kind of resisted buying it because it was a taxi. Okay, and not meant for personal segment. The customer has evolved over the last 10 years. There is no longer this kind of untouchability associated with either brands or models. Customers have become smart. They do not discriminate. Even if my car runs as a taxi service or through leasing companies, the customer is not going to judge it as that. The second important thing, which customers have become smarter and sharper, is if a car is being used by a leasing company or by a taxi tourist company, obviously the car has some merit in it if it is being used by them. And that becomes a good selling point, that this car must be good if it is being run by a taxi company, because they know how these cars are extensively used and abused. So it has changed over the last 10 years, and we don't mind our cars being used as either taxis or as leasing cars.
Yeah, that's a very, very fascinating point you make there. Absolutely. I just want to invite you all now to take again a minute or two and give your closing remarks. And here I'm going to specifically ask you about wisdom. Okay, of course, you've learned a lot of lessons this year. It's been a difficult year, but just boil it down, distill it down to maybe 1 or 2 pearls of wisdom that you as a car marketer, and of course, Gaurav Mehta, you as somebody in the space, will be entering the new calendar year with. This could be about directional trends, buying behavior patterns. Just what's your wisdom that only this year could have given you?
I'll probably go first. See, this year, if anything, what it had taught us as an industry is obviously what we talked in the beginning about being resilient, but most importantly, I think so, the virtue of acting at the right moment and making sure the plans are in the place. Because if you're not acting and only reacting, you are only 2 steps behind and never 1 step ahead. So the need of the hour is to act and not just react. I think so, as a marketing community also, we need to recognize and believe in our plans and account for those flexibilities going forward. I'm sure all of us currently are in the cycle where we are finalizing our 2021 plans, and a lot of us have plans A and plan B in place, variables, especially for first 6 months, because the jury is still out there whether the pandemic is around or not around, what happens. So the key word for me is actually flexibility. One needs to have marketing flexibility and not marketing rigidity. And that needs to be coming from that. Second thing, which is very key for me, is learning. Learning never stops. The digital medium, everybody said digital great, but then to deep dive into digital and understand what is the reach of digital, not only in terms of tier 1 cities, but tier 2, tier 3 cities. Because there, while digital penetration is there, but it's not digital readability. It's about digital watchability. It's the geo phenomena where people are watching. So if you're putting out a lot of content on digital, which is about just ads, etc., which are static ads where people are expected to read, good luck to you. You need to have visual communications, etc. So these are some of the things which we learned this year, and these are going to keep us in good stead as we go along, because we need to now be more flexible than we were ever before and be open to more new ideas.
Sure.
That's what in a nutshell I'll say.
Sure. Rahul, what's your wisdom?
Ashwini, I'll start with the first thing which I learned was obviously nothing is impossible. Okay, no matter what challenges, we as human race, we always find a solution. And I was surprised to see so many solutions, not only for meetings online, having events online, virtual events, customer experiences, customer engagement, and the list is endless. So we had a very restricted mindset before the COVID. I think COVID has just opened all the windows and given us so many opportunities that, even this is possible. Why don't you try it this way? And things are possible. So virtual events are possible. Engaging with customers is possible sitting at home. Launching cars is possible sitting at home. Obviously, nothing takes away from the real experience of meeting the customer face to face, giving them the right brand experience of the ride and drive of our product. So that is one thing that I would like to say. Second is the biggest learning is in this entire clutter of contradictions and fake news, your product is the real truth. Okay, the biggest truth is your product, and the product does not lie. So if your product is good, it will sell. Okay? No matter what you advertise, what you say, or who says what about the product, at the end of the day, your product will tell the story itself. So focus on product, focus on customers, and focus more on advocacy rather than advertising. So that's the wisdom I'll take away from 2020 and enter 2021.
Interesting. Gaurav Mehta, what about you? Because again, your reality is slightly different from that of the others on the panel. So what's your unique wisdom?
So apart from things that we discussed, two important points that I'll bring to the table. It's not just about digital marketing now, it's about digitization of the ecosystem to the endpoint and even like post-purchase. How much can we do that? Because people have seen value, as Rahul also mentioned. The things that we did not find possible till a year back are happening through digital. So I think a lot of endpoints have to be digitized. So I think that's one thing. The second thing that I see, and that's through a data point on our own platform. So while the traffic has grown enormously, the charge has been led by new users rather than returning users. So I think what I would like to think about is that there'll be different cohorts, different user behaviors as we go into 21 calendar year. So our collective knowledge of serving the consumer needs might have to broaden because there'll be new user cohorts and new user behaviors in the fray.
Correct.
So how do we do that will be a good point to ponder over.
Correct. Great. And Tarun, to end with your wisdom as you enter the new calendar year.
I think this has been a brilliant year in the sense that, the best laid plans of mice and men. You can plan as much as you want. You might be cat's whiskers, but, this kind of a year can upset everything and anything that you have on your mind. I think my wisdom and what I have learned from this year is patience and perseverance. And I think these are great values for marketers like us, because when the world around you is collapsing, this is what stands you in good stead. And that holds true for brands also. Brands also need to be patient. A lot of times these knee-jerk reactions are so temporary and so futile at times that, you should always pull back and let the storm pass. And I think the storm is passing. And this perseverance will help, and the brands who've been patient will gain. And that has been my learning for this year.
Wonderful. There are a lot of questions pouring in, but we don't have time to take them. People want to know about fossil fuels and electric vehicles, but sorry about that. This is all we have time for. Please stick around for the AV.
सत्ताईस साल आपकी अदालत में आपका साथ क्यों नहीं? जब सवाल मुस्कुराकर पूछे जा सकते हैं, चिल्लाने की क्या जरूरत? जब इरादा सीधे सीधे खबरें दिखाने का हो, तो लोगों को लड़वाने की क्या जरूरत? इसीलिए मैंने इंडिया टीवी पर इन सारी बातों को ध्यान रखा। खबरों में, कमेंट्स में, सवालों में न किसी को बनाने की नियत, न किसी को गिराने की कोशिश। इंडिया टीवी पर शोर कम, खबरें ज्यादा।
Great. Thank you, Rahul, Gaurav, and Tarun. Thank you all for your time, and have a lovely evening. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, Tarun. Bye, Gaurav.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.